Hello and welcome to another segment of DSU Inside Perspective. I'm Carlos Holmes, and this is the show where we talk with faculty, staff, students, alumni, or guests about some of the things that are going on in the world or some of the great things that are going on at Delaware State University. It's election season, and today we have Hans Reigle here, who we know here at Delaware State University as an assistant director of our aviation program as well as assistant professor of aviation. But he is a congressional candidate running for the U.S. House of Representatives seat that's being vacated by John Carney, who has announced his governor's run. Welcome to the show, Hans.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Carlos.
Well, now, when I knew you, back in the day, you were the mayor of Wyoming. Interesting meetings you had out there, boy.
Yep, I remember some of our lunches at Hall's Restaurant and such. Yep.
But tell me, did you get the ideal back then, which I guess was in the early 2000s, I think, when you were mayor of Wyoming? Did you get the ideal that you might want to pursue higher office at that time, or did it come later?
No. Well, I've always been interested in politics. I ran for town council in Wyoming when I was 19 or 20 years old. I didn't win, but I wasn't, that mature. But I did try. I enjoyed being mayor, but certainly running for Congress wasn't in my mind at that time. I decided to run before Carney stepped out of the race. I filed in March of 2016 and had to test the waters previous to that in January timeframe. So it was, I would say after the 2014 election, I considered running in 2014. And then the Republicans had their first non-incumbent statewide victory in over 20 years, and just some things that I'm not satisfied with Delaware as a state, and also on the national level, some politics that I don't like, and I decided to run and filed in March of 2016.
Well, now the U.S. House of Representatives seat here in Delaware is an at-large seat.
True.
You're representing the entire state.
Yes.
What does that mean for you to represent the entire state? How's that going to factor into your public service?
Well, it's very important. I mean, it's the people's house, and it's the voice of the people. And I think that's a great fit for me. I've always, being the mayor, listening to people, helping people, this is that on a grand level and representing all citizens of Delaware well. So it's the people's house. I mean, I've been working hard since I was 15 years old, 52 years old now. I work, and just like I've worked for everything here at DSU, when I was in the Air Force, when I was a mayor, when I was a pilot at United, captain there, I've had to work, and I'm working hard now to win this congressional seat.
You said that there were some things that you were not happy about the way politics of rolling in Delaware. This is not a program where we got long-winded time to talk, but give me a pet peeve of yours with politics and how things are operated.
Well, certainly we need to restore balance. I don't think that our current federal delegation of all Democrats and the Democratic Party controlling the House of, our state House, our state Senate, the governorship, our complete federal delegation, I don't think that represents everyone in the state well. That would be 100% representation in those areas that I just mentioned. Not everyone agrees on everything, and I think I would do a nice job representing everyone and maybe those unheard voices. And I believe strongly in fairness and balance.
You, on your website, your campaign website, you mentioned some key issues being immigration and border control, education, job growth, the national debt, which last I heard was 19 trillion. I can't even get my head wrapped around how much that is. But pick one of those and tell me how you would address it.
Sure. Well, the $19 trillion debt, as you mentioned, I think that's simply immoral. Obviously, no one is minding the store on that one.
But nobody's been minding the store for years.
Well, that's true.
We've been hearing about the debt for a long time. What do we do about it?
Well, it's expanding. So each one of my 3 kids and each one of us here in this room owe about $57,000 on the national debt. That's a problem to me. I don't want to hand that off to my kids, and I don't think it's fair to hand that burden off to these young folks in this room right here, right now. So a couple things need to happen. For one, the economy needs to be stimulated. We need more jobs. We can relate a lot of things, a lot of problems our society is having, from drug use to crime, because there's not enough jobs. I mean, just look at Wilmington, Delaware. That's a huge problem. Something else, I obviously believe strongly in aviation. I think that's a ticket on the, a ticket for our state to do better. We have a lot of aviation assets. Aviation is a gross domestic product generator. It's a export for the United States, where we still lead. But the $19 trillion, I'm with you. So there's no incentive right now for anyone in the government to save money. And you've dealt with state budgets or federal budgets. If you don't spend every penny in your coffer for that year, you lose that amount the next year. There's no incentive to save money within the federal government that I can identify. So we need to give rewards for agencies and departments that save money, and also not penalize them for saving money. So those are just a couple of the first steps. And like you said, we can't talk all day on it. I could talk for 3 hours, but just hitting a couple of the key issues, that would be those.
You're going to be entering into a primary against Rose Izzo. The primary will take place on September 13th, correct?
That's true. That is the date of the primary.
You guys you're Republican. I got to ask you.
Sure.
What do you make of what's going on the presidential campaign level for the Republicans, with this situation where you've got Donald Trump, an outsider who has ascended, and he looks like he's well on his way to getting the nomination. Meanwhile, you've got a lot of controversy within the party. What do you make of all this?
Well, a couple points. The first, to my primary, Rose Izzo has filed with the FEC. It's a very complicated process. Well, not that complicated, but there are several steps involved in filing. The first is you have to file with the Federal Election Commission. The second thing you have to do is file with the state of Delaware, and the party sets the rates there. So I have done both, and obviously there's a filing fee. Ms. Izzo, to the best of my knowledge, has not filed with the state of Delaware yet, so may or may not be on the ballot as time goes on. We'll be able to tell, and obviously there are a few Democrats running on the other side.
Right.
As far as the presidential scene, I think the whole presidential cycle has been very interesting this year. There have been a lot of populist movements on both sides, and a lot of candidates doing much better than expected on both sides. I think the party, as far as Republican-wise, will unify in the end. It's still just such a close race now that, time will tell, and people are still lining themselves up for the national convention. As far as Donald Trump being an outsider, I can understand what it's like being an outsider, because I'm a little bit of an outsider myself, running within the party. I didn't follow, some of the standard things, the path that some other folks have taken, and I kind of consider myself as an outsider as well.
So it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Last question I want, because if you're successful,
Yes.
and if you are elected to Congress, I guess you got to stop working for old Delaware State University as an aviation instructor. Talk about your time. How long have you been here with us now?
I was an adjunct for 2 years, and I've been a professor here for 5 years.
Okay, so you've been here for a little while now.
I've been here for a while, and I've loved it. I've absolutely made great relationships. It really is. It's all about helping the students and the kids. Got to do some research, as we've talked about before, and learning about the Tuskegee Airmen, learning about Delaware State.
And our connection to them here.
Absolutely. Was able to establish some connections between DSU and the Tuskegee Airmen. That's been wonderful. Our aviation program, as you know, 100% of our pilot graduates get jobs. We just had 5 students offered jobs before they even graduate. That's wonderful. One of my former students just started at Delta Airlines, and another one of my students is doing an internship at United Airlines. He stopped by yesterday to tell me he was on the way to London working for United
Okay.
as his time as a student here. So I have great memories, and DSU really is like a big family, and I've really enjoyed my time at DSU. But yes, it will be time to move on, unfortunately, sadly, but I do want to keep in touch however I can help in an advisory capacity in the future.
Okay, well, we wish you the best of luck in your congressional election run. And yes, don't forget us here at Del State.
I absolutely will not.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for this segment of DSU Inside Perspective. And thank you for joining us as well. Everybody have a good day now.
Thank you. Bye.